My name is Erin Weideman, and you are listening to Heroes for Her. This series features candid conversations with real women who strive to balance their professional acumen with their personal values. Join me as I interview positive female role models who are working hard, loving others, and inspiring the next generation of girls to serve their unique purpose. Hey guys, I am so excited to be here for today's episode. I seriously cannot wait to dive in with you. First things first though, we've got big news over here and it's regarding headphones. So for those of you that have been watching the podcast for the last couple of weeks, I've been using Rooney's old headphones, which if you can see it on the video, these are obnoxious. I get made fun of every week by my husband, who finally decided on Amazon to order me these new earbuds. So I'm super excited about them because I don't have to wear these obnoxious headphones anymore. But I kind of like them because they're Penn State. They've got the Penn State logo on them. It says Penn State at the top. I mean, I was rocking these for a long time, so I'm kind of sad not to be wearing them anymore, but I'm less sad because of how much my husband likes to poke fun at me for wearing those big things on my head. So these look really cool. If you're not looking on video and you're just listening on the podcast, I got my sweet new earbuds in, so I am ready to go. We are going to get into today's topic, and before we do that, I want to just jump in by referencing a blog post from about a month ago. So you guys, back at the beginning of January, it was like January 3rd, the blog post is called Teaching Her the Skill of Vulnerability. If you haven't read that post yet, I want to encourage you, before you listen to today's episode, to go back and check that post out, Teaching Her the Skill of Vulnerability, because about a month ago, like I said, I unpacked why vulnerability, why being your authentic, open, and honest self is an essential component for female leadership. That is one of the keys to the way we communicate, the way we connect with people, the way we relate on an emotional level. And that vulnerability, that being real with other people, is what inspires credibility, the ability that we have to be trusted and believed by other people. So when we're talking about girls and leadership, we want to point them to vulnerability because it helps others. When we're vulnerable, it helps other people see that we are honest and open and unafraid to show people who we really are. And that is how you form real trust and real connection. So if you haven't read that post yet, I encourage you to go back and do it. In today's episode, though, we are talking about the next key area of growth, the key area of focus for essential female leadership, and that is orientation. Now, when I say orientation, guys, I mean it much the way a person would, before they began any sort of a new academic program or professional program, they would attend an orientation. Like if you were going to a new school or starting a new job, you would attend a new student orientation or a new hire orientation. And my dad would call this type of orientation, he would say, this is your opportunity to get the lay of the land. And I always loved that. So a little background, after high school, I moved clear across the country from Southern California to a really tiny town smack dab in the middle of Pennsylvania, State College, the home of the Penn State Nittany Lions. I went there to play softball, whoop, whoop. And one of the first things I did after, getting all my stuff into my dorm room and moving everything in and getting myself situated was I attended the freshman orientation. And what happened there? Well, I spent several hours with other students who were also new to campus. And what were we doing? We were taking a tour. We were familiarizing ourselves with the roads and the walkways and the ways that you snake your way through campus to get to different sections, the place you need to go. We looked at, which buildings we need to go to for the classes I was going to attend, where the softball field was. I played softball. Where we were going to practice when it got super cold outside. And I won't complain about the weather right now because in San Diego, it's like 60 and I'm freezing. But I won't say anything about the rest of the country. But anyway, for example, like if it was snowing in State College, where would we go to practice, right? If I got sick, where do I go? Where's the dining hall? When I get hungry, all the important stuff. This is the stuff that you find out at the orientation. It's what an orientation is for. An orientation is a program of introduction that helps students acclimate, and it supports them to do two things. And if you're taking notes today, or if you're, just kind of need a steadier before we dive into the content today, two important things happen at an orientation. Number one, students learn, they learn where they are in relation to what they need. And the second thing that happens is they get themselves connected to the resources and support systems that are available to them as part of whatever program they're joining, whether, like I said, if it's a new school or new job or whatever. So what I've just described to you
is a focus on familiarizing yourself with your surroundings on an external level. But I want to adjust our focus for today's podcast for a second and see if we can start thinking about orientation, not in terms of our daughter's external or exterior surroundings, but rather their internal design. How can we help our girls get the lay of the land, not outside, but inside, with regard to themselves and how their brains and biology are designed to work? And this stuff is fascinating to me. But basically what we want to do is we want to help our girls answer the questions: how am I oriented? And how can I use that information to better understand myself in relation to what I need? Why do I tend to think and feel and act in certain ways? And how can I get connected to the resources and the support systems that are available to me to help me live and operate well in the world? Now, you guys, we don't have to be scientists to recognize that women think and feel and act differently than men do, generally speaking. Yes, we know there are exceptions to this. We know the brain is highly adaptive, right? And it can learn to function in lots of different ways that are considered masculine or feminine ways of thinking, right? Patterns of behaviors, we know they're formed for all sorts of reasons. But again, generally speaking, science can give us a lot of insight into the design differences that are male and female. And the more we can understand how girls and women are oriented, the better we can help our daughters understand themselves and their wiring as women. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to teach them to be authentic in their leadership. Now, in the work that I did as a teacher, I taught middle school for a really long time, and now as an entrepreneur for the last several years, I've learned a lot of great strategies that have drastically transformed me in virtually every area of my life: my faith and my marriage and my motherhood and our business and friendships, relationships, you name it. So let's just keep it real simple to kick us off. And I'll start off with the question: how many biological differences do you think that there are just between the male and female brains? And I'll give you a second to think about that, because I was shocked by this answer. The answer is over 100. Now, this is a 30-minute podcast, hopefully today, and I'm going to unpack it quickly. I don't have time to go over all these differences today. I don't know all the differences, but in one of my other resources that are coming down the pipe later, I'm going to create a course and an offering around this idea of understanding our daughter's design a little bit better. I'm going to break down those differences in much more detail, so that'll be a great place later to go if you want to dive deeper into the science. But just to get our feet wet in this area, 100 differences just between the male and female brains, I want to highlight one key difference that is going to immediately help you in your approach to raising a daughter, or if you're mentoring girls, so that her confidence increases and that she feels empowered to use this voice that we want to nurture when we talk about the idea of nurturing this voice, and her voice matters. So be sure to write this down. We're just going to focus on a couple of highlights right now, but one key difference that I want to highlight. The first one, in women, brain scans. So when scientists are scanning the brains, the scans show, and this is across the board in many different research studies, brain scans consistently show greater connectivity between the left and right sides of the brain in women, while the connections in the male brain are mostly confined to individual hemispheres. Now, I've got a graphic to put up, and I'll put this up on the post when it drops next week. But so you guys can see the differences, like the typical male brain and the lobes and the hemispheres on either side, and how everything fires across hemispheres, and it reveals these differences inside a diagram that you can actually see. And then the typical female brain, you can see them paired next to each other. Now, there have been many, many studies that confirm what I just described, this brain connectivity. The recent one, the one that I'm referencing, is a study that was done by the University of Pennsylvania in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 2003. And like I said, I'll put this graphic up for you so you can see and make a little bit more sense of it if you're just listening. But to put it differently, girls have roughly 10 times more white brain matter, the tissue that relates to and indicates that our brain activity is networked, meaning it's firing across both hemispheres of our brain when we're processing and receiving information, when we're thinking about certain things. And boys, men, on the flip side, in general, have 7 times more gray matter. So that means that their thinking is localized and it happens in the same place, either on one side of the brain or the other side. And if you've ever heard someone say, and there's this really great YouTube video, I'll put this up too, where I think a pastor is breaking down like the difference between the male and female brain. It's hilarious. But if you've ever heard the term or somebody say it like this, boys' brains are like waffles and girls' brains are like spaghetti, that kind of gives you an idea of what we're dealing with here. So what does this mean for our conversation if we want to inspire our girls to be authentic in leadership and to come alongside them and train them up and help them build these skills? Well, for starters, this type of brain function, the fact that our brains as girls and women fire across both hemispheres as we think and process information, it might explain why it can take girls and women a little bit longer to think through solutions to problems because we're busy processing large amounts of data due to where that data is stored inside our brain, which I think is fascinating. And as a mom, like I'm sure you've experienced this firing across both hemispheres designed for thinking. For women, this can lead to things like overanalysis and obsessing over details and struggling to make decisions because you've got fear that the decision might be the wrong decision and you're constantly working these things over in your brain. We are wired to think that way, and that is the way God designed our brains to work, to be able to go across both hemispheres and process this large amount of data, right, and think through every possible solution, but it can take us a little bit longer, which I think is really interesting. I mean, I could go on all day on these things. I think they're fascinating. Additionally, though, most girls' and boys' brains are wired to process the connection between language and emotion differently. And because of this, many girls have an easier time talking about their feelings than many boys do. The language part of the brain develops early and first for girls, and for boys, the spatial, the spatial part of their brain and helping them understand their environment, that's what forms first. So it's just interesting to be able to know some of these facts and, like I said, have it inform the way that we interact with our girls. So female brains, and I think this is fascinating, female brains tend to focus a bit better on the details. And that makes sense because, when we're telling stories or when we're recalling information, we like to share lots of details, don't we, ladies? And that this also, I think this is hysterical because I'm thinking about how I do this all the time with my husband. It really annoys him. Girls can express their emotions at a considerable length. And that's me. I mean, sometimes I'm talking to Brett and I just see his eyes glaze over like, when are you going to get to the point? And I'm just recalling all the details that I think are really important. I just think it's funny. But this might explain, right? Like, on average, I mean, girls use 3 times as many words as boys do. Now, I'm unpacking all these facts, and generally speaking, again, like as you think about it through the lens of your daughter and her unique personality and the way that you interact with her and the uniqueness and the special things that make her, you can kind of assess her for these types of situations. Like, does it take her a long time to think through to solutions to problems? Does she overwork herself or overanalyze or stress herself out? Does she have an easier or a hard time talking about her feelings? Does she use a lot of words when fewer words maybe would help her get to the point a little quicker? Why does this matter? Well, knowing that this is the case, that men and women, girls and boys have different brain connectivity, what we want to do as moms and mentors is approach our interactions with our girls and the training of our girls with a working knowledge of how the female brain functions and allow that understanding to inform everything we do, how we talk to them, how we make requests of them, how we help them evaluate and make decisions, their approach to problem solving, when we support them to resolve conflicts with people and their relationships, family members, friends. I mean, wisdom truly is the most valuable asset we can obtain, and passing on wisdom about how she's wired is going to create so many benefits for her and for you as the person raising her. So I love this verse from Proverbs because I think it'll steady us for the rest of our time this week, and I'm going to get into a couple of challenges I want to leave you guys with today. Proverbs chapter 3, the verses 13. Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Wisdom is. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Now, the best thing we can do as girl moms and mentors is to pass on this wisdom, like I said, this understanding about who she is and how she's wired, so that she knows that the female tendency and wiring and brain and biology and trend is to think this way because of our design. And it's not because of a lack of intelligence or the perception of others that we might be scattered or all over the place or we don't have any organization to our thinking. That's not what our wiring tells us. And that's not what we want our girls to be encouraged to know about themselves as they think, as they feel, as they process information and their emotions in healthy ways. So what is the next step? And hopefully you're not like super overwhelmed with all this brain biology stuff. Like I said, I just wanted to introduce a couple of quick facts that we can kind of ground on today, to help us understand, maybe a different way to approach her when we're talking to her, maybe giving her a little bit more grace and time to think through, problems and challenges that inevitably come up throughout our girls' day. We want to educate them in the area of their female wiring. And then the second thing we want to do as moms and mentors is make sure we're offering them strategies that are going to help them organize their thinking and maintain their composure as they process information in the exact way God designed their brains to do it. So the challenge for this week, you guys, is to graduate from having just a baseline awareness that boys and girls are different. We can't really ground on the fact that, they're different and we don't know exactly why they're different and we're not using that information to our advantage. So we want to go a step further and not just agree that, yes, differences between boys and girls and the way they process and receive and respond to information, those differences exist. Taking it a step further, we want to decide, how do we move forward with intention by learning about those differences and then asking ourselves the following questions. And you can write these questions down because, I went on a hunt. I have a thirst for this, and in entrepreneurship and being new to the business world a couple of years ago, I was very encouraged to learn these things to be able to effectively navigate business situations and be able to talk to men and talk to women and be able to gather people around a table and own my unique brand of leadership as a female founder and now as a mom and a mother, and it's seeping its way into all of the different, spheres of influences that I'm in as a woman. But the questions that we can start asking ourselves around this understanding of design and helping our girls understand how they are oriented. Here, there are 3 questions that I want to just help us before we wrap up. Number 1, is the way that we're interacting with our daughters optimal for what we know about their feminine design? Number 2, is our approach to teaching them appropriate for that wiring, the design that God placed inside our daughters? Are we approaching them and our teaching of them and our, guidance and mentorship of them? Is it appropriate for the way that girls receive and process and respond to information? These are important questions. Number 3, this may be the most important question that you write down today. Are we letting our daughters in on how God designed them, so that when they get confused, when they feel anxious or stressed about the way they're thinking or feeling, or, when they make a mistake or their behavior is off and we're trying to, as a parent, guide them to be making good and right and, honoring and respectful decisions and having good interactions with the people that they're meeting, are we downloading on our daughters more about what God's design of them is so that they have peace about who they are as people? And when they do make a mistake or they do feel stressed out or they do feel anxious, we can ground them on the fact that their brain wiring is a little bit different and it's not bad. It's on purpose, and they can use what they know about their wiring to help them move past fear, help them feel less anxious. And like I said, offering them strategies to do that. And I'm going to be posting about these strategies too, guys. But just as we wrap up, as women, and we know this, the adult women that are listening, that our brains are wired for connectedness. It makes sense that women are natural at building bridges between people and weaving a web, and we're good at hosting, a lot of us. And, people gather and grow and come around and guide and support each other. We do that as women, and it's because we're wired to do that. But helping our girls understand that wiring is going to give them a serious advantage as they learn to live authentically and be their true selves, as they learn to lead from their own values and own, just like we're trying to own our sphere of influence as their moms and their mentors. We want to teach them to own the spheres of influence they've been assigned to by living authentically, by being vulnerable, like I said in the last post, and by helping them understand more about God's design of them so that they can live and operate well in those spheres of influence. So what we can do today, guys, even if your daughter is 6 or 16, I mean, you can help even the youngest girls begin to understand their orientation. I already talked to Rooney about this stuff, and it's going to manifest great returns when our girls learn that they can draw upon the understanding of what they know about their design to make sense of the things that they think and the things that they feel. So as we wrap up today's podcast, I'm going to be posting about this like in the future, and some blogs and content are coming, with regard to, practically, yes, I need some tips and tools, and how do I live this out with her? What are some things I can say? How can I introduce this topic to her? So to just finish us out today, here are the 3 main takeaways I want you to stay focused on as we head into the next couple of weeks. And I'll be sure, to be posting about these strategies so that you guys can try them out. Number 1, leading girls is going to require us to seek wisdom about the differences between the male and female brains and biology. It is not enough to just know that there are differences. As moms, as mentors, as women, as adult women who care about this next generation of girls, we need to know what these differences are and use that knowledge to lead our girls effectively. Number 2, research consistently shows that the female brain processes information across both hemispheres, while the male brains show thinking that is consistently localized and found in either hemisphere. And that means that the way we process and receive and respond to information is going to be different, and it is okay and it's beautiful, but making sure that we know that distinction, we know that difference going in. Number 3, there are strengths and challenges that come with a woman's networked brain activity, and girls and women, I need it too. Oh my gosh, every day. And I use these strategies all the time. I'm so excited to share them with you. Girls need strategies that are going to help them organize and process their thinking. So as you guys, go back into the week and have interactions with your girls, keep in mind that even the youngest girls, I mean, they're just young women, and they're growing up to be women, but they're not there yet. Give them grace when they need a little longer to think through and sort out a problem. And be sure to offer them a strategy, whether it's something that will help them be less stressed or, a calming strategy. There are calming strategies that I'll post, shortly after this airs, that you can offer your daughter as a way to calm her brain. When she feels like her brain, she just can't get organized and things are out of whack and she feels like her thinking is scattered, she's overthinking something, there are specific and amazing strategies that you can employ that will calm her down, that will allow her to kind of set her body back to zero and to be able to think and process information a bit more clearly in a way that's going to make more sense for her to make an effective choice or choose, a good solution for whatever challenge she's facing. So I hope this podcast blessed you guys. Like I said, if you've got questions and you're over here going, oh my gosh, this was a lot like for my brain to download and I don't understand science. And my goal is not to overwhelm you guys and just and dump all this research and data on you. But if we can just pull a couple little nuggets here and there about what the science is telling us and then choose strategies that can increase her confidence and get her connected to who she is as a human being. Oh my gosh, the returns. Like I said, this has totally transformed my life. I hope it's blessed you to hear just a couple of quick stories about it. I'll be posting about this, but if you guys have if you guys have questions about a specific strategy to use for your daughter, make sure you send me a message or post a picture, tag me on Facebook or Instagram. It's Erin.Weideman, and I will answer your questions. If you're thinking through, well, I don't know how this applies to my daughter. My daughter's 8 and she's, homeschooled, or I've got a 12-year-old daughter and she's really struggling in middle school, and if you've got kids with learning issues or, whatever your specific situation is with your daughter, there is a good strategy or a set of strategies that you can use to come alongside her and support her in exactly the way she needs to be supported to understand more about her wiring. So if you need help kind of fishing that, finding that information, or you need to just bounce an idea off of somebody before you go and talk to her about it, please send me a message, send me an email. You can DM me on Instagram. I'm usually in there pretty regularly, and I would be happy to answer this question. So like I said, guys, I hope this podcast blessed you. Be sure to reach out if you have questions, and thank you guys for listening. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you enjoyed our conversation, please be sure to rate and review us on iTunes. If you have any questions, thoughts about the episode, or ideas about how we can come together and support our girls, we would absolutely love to hear from you. You can email us at hello@biblebells.com.